welcome. I'm not Norm Johnson from Mindshare. I'm Liz Butler from The Guardian, and I know in the programme it says that Neil Dewlake is talking. I didn't change sex on the flight. I am Liz Butler. Unfortunately, Neil couldn't make it. No, so today I'm going to talk about casting the net wider, building engagement across the web. Now, just to put in context, I'm sorry I haven't tried this out yet, so let's hope it works. The Guardian. So for those of you who don't know, Guardian News and Media is a publisher in the UK. We have a Monday to Saturday newspaper, The Guardian. We have The Observer, which is our Sunday newspaper, and we also have guardian.co.uk, which is our website. Now, today, I'm really going to talk about our experiences, so I'm going to use guardian.co.uk as an example throughout. It's really from a Guardian viewpoint, and I really hope it is interesting. We don't have all the answers. We're trying a lot of things. A lot of things are working, and a lot of things aren't working. So, user engagement is everything that we do, and community is at the heart of everything that we do, and it's very important. Even if you're not a publisher, for your website, you must create a sense of community on your site. Now, please take a moment to read this slide. It's taken from our football chalkboard. Now, as you can see, this user is really engaged with our site. He's set up his football team, he's looking at the football highlights all day, and it's actually making him sick. And look at the time it was written. It was written at 4:45 in the morning. He got up at that early to write this comment. So this is an example of user engagement gone too far. So I've spoken about user engagement gone too far, and I'm now going to talk about how we understand user engagement and how we try and get our users to engage with us. Now, at The Guardian, we call this our circle of love. It illustrates how users come to us as a casual user, how we try and make them feel connected to the brand, how we try and nurture that relationship into a committed user, and then maybe those users will be blogging on our site and creating the catalyst to draw more users to our site. So when I talk about a casual user, I really mean someone that's done a news search, maybe on Google, and The Guardian has come up in the search results. So they've come onto our site, read that story, maybe they've only clicked on one ad, and we really need to convert that casual user into a committed user. A casual user, okay, it will drive up our headline traffic figures, but the committed user is where we will draw revenue from. So, how are we connecting with our users? Firstly, we must respect our users. Now, guardian.co.uk is a publisher. When people blog on our site, they have to enter their email address. If they enter a competition, they have to enter their email address. So once we have their data on that user, we have to respect them. We can't spam them with loads of emails, giving them offers which may not be relevant to them. We really have to nurture that relationship. We also have to reward them. If someone has read our site, we have to provide engaging content. We also have to, if someone has blogged on our site, we have to make sure that journalist replies to that comment or highlights the other interesting comments on the site. And we have lots of other ideas about how we're going to reward our users. One of them is that we're talking about looking at our super users and giving them flip-top cameras so that when they write their comments, they can actually upload photography easily as well. Immediate. When a journalist, once they've filed their story on the website, they can't sit back down and start thinking about the next story. They've got to be constantly engaged in that story, curating the content, highlighting other interesting comments. And to moderate or not. Now, I was in a presentation yesterday when I think it was the gentleman from Coca-Cola that was saying that they pre-moderate all the comments that appear on the site. Now, we have over 1 million comments every month from all of our users. So we don't pre-moderate the editorial blogs. However, if a user complains about a comment, we will go and investigate that comment, and if we deem it unsuitable, it will be taken down. So that's editorial blogs. We also create commercial blogs for our advertisers. An example of this is British Airways, so we might create a business travel blog. Now, obviously brands want to be in a safe environment, and we have to make them feel safe so they want to work with us. So with commercial blogs or commercial content, commercial microsites, we will pre-moderate the comments. But we make the brand understand that the more that we pre-moderate, the user knows that we're doing this, and then they won't respect it as much. So we try and work with the brand. So, helping the users to get involved. We've got to make sure the content on guardian.co.uk is really engaging. We want them to share links with their friends, share stories, sign up and blog about the stories that we're creating. Get involved, send us videos, send us images. Now, a good example of this is what happened earlier this year in the UK. We had the G20 riots. And at these riots, it was one of the most photographed events in history. There was photo bloggers, there was professional photographers, there was people there with camera phones. We ourselves, as The Guardian, had 20 journalists that were covering the event. Now, at the event, tragically, Ian Tomlinson, a member of the general public, suffered a heart attack and later died. The police issued a statement saying that protesters were throwing bottles and they couldn't help Ian Tomlinson, and it was a protester's fault. Now, Paul Lewis, one of our journalists, had been at the scene, and he'd been talking to eyewitnesses, he'd been writing up about the story, and he just really felt that the police statement didn't match with what he was hearing from the eyewitnesses. So on guardian.co.uk, he was asking for more information from people who had been there at the scene. Also, on his Twitter account, he tweeted about asking anyone that had been there to get in contact with him. From that, 6 days later, a New York banker who had been in London for the G20 riots got in touch with Paul Lewis. He'd been at the G20 riots and recorded some footage on his mobile phone. He'd then gone back to New York. He didn't know anything about The Guardian. He'd done a news search on Google and seen that The Guardian had been covering the story. He'd also been on Twitter and seen that Paul Lewis was asking for more information. Anyway, this New York banker sent us his footage, and then we took a look at it. And the footage clearly showed that Ian Tomlinson had been walking away from the police with his hands in the pockets, and the police had actually knocked him to the ground. So the footage was put live on our site and obviously created public outrage. The police came to our offices and tried to take the footage down, saying that we were upsetting the family. Now, in actual fact, the family of Ian Tomlinson were in our offices, and they'd given us their full consent for the footage to be put live. So the police had to launch a full investigation into the incident. So I've talked about the depth of our site. I'm now going to talk about the breadth. Guardian News and Media has been around for a very long time. We started in 1812. Now, I really don't think that any of you want a history lesson on us. However, in 1821, we were selling a couple of thousand copies of the newspaper every week. And we were actually based in Manchester. At that point, we weren't even based in London. Now, we're reaching over 33 million people every month, and 2/3 of that traffic is actually outside of the United Kingdom. We have to make sure that our content not only is available in the newspaper, in magazines, we also have the website, guardian.co.uk, we have RSS feed, blogs, mobile, user-generated content, Twitter, open platform and networks I'm just going to cover a bit later, and then emails that go out to our users as well. We've completely diversified our offering as a media organisation. Now, just before I go on to the next slide, obviously we make money in papers, in magazines, with advertising, also display advertising on our website. But with all this diversification, we are constantly looking at new revenue streams. Now, one of these, and I think this is quite a fun example, is Soulmates. Now, in the UK, I'm not sure what's happening in Bulgaria. People are finding it ever hard to get a date, and people are turning to the internet to meet their one true love. Soulmates is our internet dating site, and it's incredibly popular. It has over 130,000 unique users, and over 300 people every month meet their match on Soulmates. Now, how do we make money from this? We charge a £25 subscription fee every month. and this is a big revenue generator for us. Now, this is an example of something that has worked well. Obviously, we've tried things that haven't worked well. I'm sure there's lots of publishers in the audience. One of those things that we tried that didn't work well was G24. We thought that on the website we could have a downloadable newspaper, which would just be one A4 sheet, and it would be updated every 5 minutes. So if someone was going from a meeting in London, catching the tube, they could just hit download, take that piece of paper, read the content on the tube or in their taxi. And then we thought, oh, that's great, we can get loads of our advertisers to advertise it and sponsor it. It will be, be great for us. It didn't work. People didn't want to download the content. We tried it for about a year, and now we've taken it down. And another example of something that we've tried that didn't work was we had a travel auction site. We thought that with our wealth of travel advertisers and also with our huge audience, we'd be able to operate almost like an eBay bidding for holiday. So when travel advertisers had lots of capacity near the date, we could offer up these holidays and people could bid for them. Maybe it's because we didn't do it right, but people weren't interested, and that again got taken down. So, The Guardian is a large site in its own right, but we're never going to be able to keep up with the growth of the internet. So to stay afloat and to keep sustainable, we need to weave ourselves into the very fabric of the web. Sorry, it's a very confusing diagram, but what I'm really trying to say with this diagram is that Web 2.0 changed everything. There are so many ways to touch audience on and off portal. People are used to interaction in their daily lives. People are engaging with each other, but Facebook, MySpace, Twitter are facilitating that engagement. This is what we call the jigsaw pieces or the building blocks of our website, and it's the same as true for nearly all other websites as well. We started with text. We've now been doing multimedia for the last 4 years, and if there are any publishers in the audience, we've really found that with especially video, that it's an incredibly popular way for advertisers to do the pre-roll before the video, and at the moment we're sold out until Christmas with the pre-roll videos. Community, as I said, is at the heart of everything we do. We have over 20 blogs and receiving over 1 million comments from our users every month. However, data, now this data is interesting. Data is the future, and I'm going to cover this later. If we look at these 3 diagrams, if you take the diagram on the left, that is traditional media. Imagine Friends, a television program, where interaction really stays in the front living room. The middle diagram shows the early web, where there are a few forums, few talk boards, there's a little bit of interaction happening. The far diagram on the right shows Web 2.0, where we are now. And The Guardian, as an organisation, wants to be in all those dots, sparking all those conversations and talking about the debate that is happening. We believe as a media organisation that we can't just have our content on our own website. We have to have our content everywhere. So you can download all our videos from YouTube. You can download all our podcasts from iTunes. All of our news stories are on feeds through all the news aggregator sites like Google and Yahoo. And also, Twitter is a good example. Just the Guardian technology team has over 1.2 million followers on Twitter. The travel journalists will tweet whenever they're going to launch a new travel story. The fashion journalists will tweet whenever they've got a new fashion. We did some video diaries from all the fashion shows, and they tweet every time before they go live. Now, I'm not a techie person, so I find Guardian Open Platform quite difficult to explain. However, we have now opened up our content so developers can apply for a key and then go and manipulate and build with on our site and also take the information away. So all of our HTML code, all of our article history, all of the data is available for developers to go and build on and build with. As a newspaper, there are some events in history that you can predict. People are going to be coming on the site and reading about the World Cup, especially, obviously, the UK. Everyone loves football. People are going to want to read information about the Olympics, obviously Wimbledon, general elections in the UK and around the world are going to create interest. But sometimes there's events in history that happen that we can't predict. And I'm sorry this is a UK example, but earlier this year we had the MP expenses scandal, where members of our parliament had been caught out for expensing the cleaning of their moat, or the building of a duck house, or having second homes that their daughter was living in and not actually themselves. This is a huge scandal in the UK, but there was so much information. It was over 450,000 spreadsheets of Excel. Not one team of our journalists would ever be able to go through that information. And obviously, on the site, it wasn't a particularly visual or interesting way to go through the information. So we had it on our open source network, and one developer took all the information from all those Excel spreadsheets and built this map. Now, blue is kind of okay, red is very bad. So easily you could see who your local MP was and what they were spending money on. So this wasn't a Guardian developer that created this. This was one of our users. And obviously it was on our site, it created engagement, and it built more traffic to our site and enhanced the user experience. Another much more simple example is that the YouTube download of a trailer of a new game, and then you'd have to go to the Guardian site to actually read the review. This is beautifully simple. A developer came and built a bit of code so you could watch the YouTube download and read the Guardian review on our site. Really simple, but just enhances the user experience. So what's next? Both of those examples are of what developers have done actually physically on the Guardian site. This is an example of how Goal Run, which is a social networking site for footballers by footballers, they take all of our football stories and hold them on our server and then publish them on their own website with a credit to us, as you can see in the slide. Now, people, when we started Open Platform earlier this year in March, people said, why are you doing this? Why are you giving out all your content for free? However, the example with Goal Run is that we are now working on an advertising revenue share model with them. So we can sell, it gives us other channels to be able to put our advertisers on, especially with the example of Gold Run. You know, it's a real, 20 to 45 male audience, which is actually very hard to reach. Another example is that we've built a green ad network. In the UK, there's been a huge growth of people wanting to read green content. The environmental site on the Guardian website is incredibly popular. So our editorial team have chosen sites to work with. These are very small independent sites that you wouldn't actually be able to buy advertising on. So now we sell advertising across all of these sites. Just list them on the next slide. This is just a selection of them. But for our advertisers, for example, we did a campaign with Nokia where it was all about emptying your drawer and recycling your mobile phone. Ecova had a campaign about the environmentability of their washing machines. Toyota had a campaign on there with the launch of the new Prius. So it's an extended reach for our advertisers. Right, I'm just going to skip through the next example because I think rather than me talking, it's probably a lot more interesting to have questions. But one of the most important things is measuring conversations. The traditional form of media, you might reach one person who might tell 10 people. And those 10 people, 2 of those people might convince one person to take action, to ring up and book a holiday, to ring up and order that mail order catalogue. But now, it's all about talking and listening, a two-way flow of information, and dealing with networks of people. People are becoming brand advocates, becoming fans of brands. I'm not saying that the form of traditional media doesn't work, but you need to understand both models, and you need to measure the conversations that are happening on your site. I mean, if anyone has any good theories, I mean, we're trying to think of ways of doing this. At the moment, we can only really measure in terms of traffic and dwell time on the site. But at least then we know what is sparking the most amount of debate and creating the most amount of engagement. So, in summary, be fertile, be sparking conversations, interact with the community of your site, build engagement with the customers and they will love you back. Be part of the fabric of the web. The Guardian does this through YouTube, iTunes, Twitter, Facebook. And measure influence. As I said, we're still figuring out ways of doing this in its entirety at the moment. But measure what is sparking debate on your site. Measure what is increasing the traffic figures. Measure why people are dwelling longer on a certain page compared to another. No one ever predicted the internet would be in its form now. The Guardian never predicted that it would be a global news site. So, thank you very much for your time. Are there any questions? Can you shout?
Hi, this is okay. This is Odysseas Dotsikas from Think Digital in Athens, Greece. Just wanted to make a question about the journalists. I mean, all that you presented was good, and I guess it's quite accepted by the public. But what was the reaction by the journalists of their newspaper?
Honestly, it's been a very, it's been a hard process to go through. I mean, we used to have Guardian journalists, Observer journalists, Guardian.co.uk journalists. We moved to a new building last year, which really obviously helped all being in the same place. And we now work in we have a sports pod, so people will write across all of them. And over the last 18 months, we've been going through this big process of training all the journalists so that they can be able to obviously write a story for print, they can record a podcast, and they can film audio as well. But some have embraced it, and some haven't. And it has been a long process to go through, and it's still ongoing now, because a journalist who is fantastic in print doesn't necessarily mean that they're good at creating podcasts.
Lazar Malakov, Dnes.bg. I'll present myself like that because it's a news site. My question is about measuring the influence you have on the discussions you have below the articles. You mentioned the time they are dwelling on the web and number of views, but do you measure also other metrics? I'm sure you must be much more advanced than everybody else.
It's very interesting, and we've had lots of companies come to see us to say how they can help us measure the influence. And of course, we know that if we write a story about, for example, the Middle East, that within 2 to 3 minutes there will be over 1,000 comments. So obviously, for every article, we measure the number of comments, and then we also measure the amount of traffic and then how much time people are dwelling. But apart from those factors, it's quite, it's a very touchy-feely. We don't have the answers.
My second point to the same question was about you are present actually everywhere on the web. That means Facebook, Twitter, and especially at Facebook, you cannot really measure how many people have reposted the article and how many people have actually commented another 2,000 comments somewhere else. Do you track somewhere something like that? Do you have researchers for this? And,
I mean, I think you've said exactly there. We can't. However, we feel that it's much better to be able to give out our content than the risk of not doing it at all. And also, we're very aware that some people are very, Guardian, they're big fans, and then there's a lot of people who don't know about the Guardian, but much better that they get to hear about us on Facebook or YouTube and then become a committed user of ours.
Thank you.
What's the split in your revenue models? I mean, display advertising, do you derive your revenues from display advertising mostly, or what's the share of the kinds of advertisement, of the kinds of revenues you generate?
I suppose predominantly the main focus, I mean, as an organisation, print is still our cash cow and what we make most of the amount of money from. But on the site, we really split it into two. We split it into display advertising and then content solutions. So the kind of sponsorship of projects when we create microsites on our site for brands. But what we found recently, and I'm not sure if this will become the same in the market here, is that before, with advertising, just display campaigns online, maybe we would get it, maybe two of our competitors. But with the content solutions, advertisers are offering up a lot bigger budgets. And if you are lucky and you get that budget, you get a much bigger chunk of the pot. However, you could be unlucky and not get anything. So it's even more of a gamble now, we're finding.
Hello. I was wondering about your open platform, how open it actually is. For example, it's open for different applications to be using it. When people are creating new applications, they can use the platform. But I was wondering in particular if I have a site in Bulgaria that wants to stream the news from The Guardian, because I don't have the content, the news content and so on. Could I maybe interconnect with your open platform? How is The Guardian feeling about that?
I mean that's with my example with Goal Run. I mean, they are literally streaming our football content. And I suppose on a news one, it would be up to us to have, it's definitely something that we're interested in, and we would like to talk to you more.
That's great. So I can filter the content. For example, I don't want the whole content. I don't want the political, or I just want music or whatever, because I don't have the content. And something like this is really. So you're open to.
Yeah, definitely, and it's definitely. I mean,
it's really open platform.
Yeah, it really is open platform, and please come and see me or give me your card. And as I did say, I'm not a technical person, so I will have to put you in touch with Matt McAllister, who runs our open platform. But he'd be very interested in having a conversation with you about it.
All right, great. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time, and I'm here for the rest of the day. So if anyone has any other questions, please do come up and talk to me. Thank you very much.